Assalamualaikum and good morning. My name is Tunku Sara. I'm a clinical psychologist in Hospital Bahagia Ulu Kinta. Welcome to today's webinar. So the topic that we'll be talking about today is embracing the normal, challenges and ways of coping. For those of you who have been following the webinar series so far, there have been 6 previous speakers, clinical psychologists, and throughout those sessions, to some extent, they have been sharing ways of coping, dealing with stress, anxiety, and things like that. So how I'm going to handle today's topic is I'll be talking more about accepting the situation and how that can help us embrace the new normal. So before today, many of you would have already heard the phrase the new normal, but what does that mean exactly? So normal is just what is considered standard, what we conform to, and in a psychological sense also what is considered healthy. So in a simple way, the new normal is just all the changes that are now part of our routine. So what we are going through right now is a historical period. And in regards to that, I would like to share a term by historian and philosopher Yuval Harari, who observed that right now we are in a fast-forward historical process. And what that means is that usually for changes to occur, for changes to happen in society, it takes years and maybe even decades of decision and policy making. But because of the current situation, things are happening, decisions are being made maybe within days or even just a few hours. So that's at the societal level. And at the individual level, all of us are getting used to doing new things or doing things in a different way now. So things such as online classes, not being able to just go out for fun, and even routine things like grocery shopping, which we have to do within a time limit. No physical contact, no shaking hands, that sort of thing. And also being aware or more conscious about our hygiene. In regards to social distancing in particular, or physical distancing, which is the term recommended by the WHO, I want to share a concept by a clinical psychologist, a professor of psychology, Professor Paul Gilbert in the UK, who has suggested that we think of the term safe relating rather than social or physical distancing, which implies some sort of disconnection or isolation. So what he's trying to say is that we still need to relate to each other, we still need to connect with each other. It's just that now we're doing it with some adjustment. So with technology now, we have many options. We just need to decide that we want to stay connected. And actually, even social media can be beneficial on the condition that we interact. So giving comments, sharing opinions, your experiences and things like that, rather than just passive scrolling. When we say something is new, we are implying that there was something old, something previous, something that we have left behind. And so we may feel a sense of loss. For some of you, it might be something concrete. Losing a loved one, losing a job, losing financial security. Or it may be something more ambiguous or abstract, such as losing our sense of predictability or control, which is typical, going through uncertain times, something that is new to us. So one way to help us cope with these kinds of thoughts, emotions, is to write them down. It's a simple exercise, but it can help us find ways to move forward. If we do so by identifying our strengths and resources, what support do we have? And in addition to that, it helps if we think about a time in the past when we dealt with a loss or we overcame a struggle. So think about how you coped with that. What did you do? What were the things that were helpful? What helped you get through that? And so remember that for some of us, adjustment might be easier than others. Some of us might find it harder. And to a large extent, our reactions will be more or less similar, just to varying degrees. So the reactions I'm talking about obviously are stress, anxiety, and maybe even some of you might be feeling down, might be having low mood, or notice that you're losing interest in your daily activities. Often when we are stressed and especially anxious, we tend to worry about the future. And we need to strike a balance here between what we can control and what we can't. Decide to put our time and effort into that, the things that we can change, and on the other hand, to accept the things that we cannot change. So we can disagree about something, but still be able to accept it. And when we accept a situation as reality, that we say, okay, so this is what I'm going through now, this is what I'm experiencing, then that allows us to move on with the adjustments that need to be made. For us to adjust to the new normal, to new norms, there are two things. One is acceptance, and the second is to be mindful. Mindfulness is it's a big field, and there's lots of research into it in terms of its benefits. And I'm just going to focus on. I'm going to start off with probably the most common definition of mindfulness by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who stated that mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, and that way is on purpose, being in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. This way of thinking, or this idea, can be applied to our thoughts, our emotions, as well as our experiences. The idea is to accept the situation or experience without trying to avoid or resist it. Remember that struggles and unpleasant feelings, stressful things are a part of life. It's inescapable. But what turns all that into suffering is when we deny it, or the refusal to accept it. The specific part of mindfulness that I would like to highlight is being present, or being in the moment. Imagine it like this. If you are currently struggling or having difficulties right now, that is already enough. We don't need to add the past or the future onto that. What I mean is, for example, by worrying or stressing about things that happened in the past, or things that didn't happen in the past, things that didn't go our way, or worrying about things that may or may not happen in the future. Instead, it may be more helpful to focus on what we can change or do right now. Mindfulness it's a simple concept, but it's not easy. And there are many exercises and ways to practice it, but I just want to mention here that it's literally just focusing on whatever you are doing, even the most simple, the most routine tasks. Be present to the chores that you're doing every day, paying full attention to the people around you, and including whatever emotions or feelings that you are experiencing, even if they seem unpleasant. But like I said, I acknowledge that this is easier said than done, and it does take a lot of practice. So the next concept I want to share is the joy of missing out, or Jomo. Some of you may have heard this phrase. And this term has actually been advocated by a number of psychologists from around the world. So Jomo, joy of missing out, you may think of it as the more positive version of fear of missing out, which I'm sure most of us have come across that term. And for those of you who haven't, fear of missing out is when people get stressed or worried or concerned that other people have or are experiencing better things than what we have or what we are involved in. And perhaps to some extent, we do have a bit of this now, in the sense of we are thinking about, we can't do this anymore, or comparing what your life was before the pandemic started, or before the MCO. So the idea here is to focus less on what we're unable to do and instead think of moving forward, and also worry less on what other people are doing. So how to get into the mindset of Jomo, joy of missing out, is you could think of things that you don't have to do anymore and that feels nice. So for example, don't have to be stuck in a traffic jam every day, or it's nice that I don't have to see my boss's face every morning, for example. This outlook is to help us notice moments of joy, which sometimes is harder to do when there is so much around us to be stressed about or to complain about. And it's not about ignoring those unpleasant things, it's about paying attention to the good parts that are already there. So talking about acceptance, as I mentioned, it's about accepting things that we can't control. So for problems or situations that are beyond our control, what we can do is to help manage our emotions regarding those things. And this is known as emotion-focused solutions. So for the sake of brevity, I will only touch on stress management, and there are many things that we can do for that. So what I just want to highlight today is you can think of it in terms of 4 areas: lifestyle, interpersonal, emotional, as well as cognitive. So lifestyle, the basic things like your diet, your health, so exercising, taking care of your sleep hygiene, simple things like that. Second, interpersonal. Maintain and nurture quality relationships, relationships that are embedded with trust, with encouragement, with support. So using communication skills, which was touched on by our speaker yesterday, and as well as things like assertiveness. So say no when you don't want to. So the third area is emotional. So this can be, again, simple things just like writing down your emotions, expressing yourself through art, or through any activity that allows you to release your emotions in a safe and healthy way. And you can also use relaxation techniques here. And the last domain is cognitive, so our thoughts. So what you can do here that may be helpful is to try and look at things from a different perspective. Sometimes, especially when we're going through a difficult time, it's easy to focus only on the negative aspects, to only see what's going wrong or what I don't have. But that's rarely the case where everything in life is going wrong. There are good things as well. And like I mentioned just previously about the joy of missing out, kind of to have the idea or to try and take the perspective that, yeah, there are good things in my life and I just need to pay attention to that as well. So looking at things from a different perspective, as well as recognizing your limits, but also your strengths. And so the topic of resilience, again, that has been discussed by a previous speaker, but I want everyone to remember that resilience is not an all or nothing thing. It's not that some people have it and some people don't. Everyone is resilient. Everyone is resilient, and it is something that can be developed. Okay, so those are the 4 areas of stress management. So other things you can do. So I'll just briefly review some basic coping skills. Perhaps for some of you who have not been following the series or have missed out on some of the previous sessions. And this is just to help manage our emotions, manage our thoughts. So probably the most common suggestion that we give is activity scheduling. And this may be particularly helpful for those of you who might be feeling stuck or trapped, feeling unmotivated. And a lot of people actually have the misconception that we need to feel like it or be more motivated before we do something. However, if we proceed like this, we just end up getting stuck in a vicious cycle. So the way to get out of that is to actually do something first, regardless of how you feel about it. So activity scheduling just basically means set aside time in your day to do things that you enjoy, to do things that you would like to improve or master, such as a new skill, and things that are meaningful for you. So activity scheduling. Another thing I can add to that is you could think of it in terms of 3 areas. The routine things, so the regular things that you're doing every day, such as cooking, taking care of yourself, cleaning the house, things like that. Things that are necessary, such as paying bills, renewing your driver's license. And the third is enjoyable or pleasurable activities, and that can be literally anything. It depends on your interest, depends on your passion. So activity scheduling, relaxation techniques, and again here there's multiple things that you can do: yoga, meditation, deep breathing exercises, muscle relaxation. And the last one is sleep hygiene. So everyone knows not to take caffeine 4 to 6 hours before bedtime. And another couple of things that you can keep in mind is about going to sleep and waking up at a consistent time, even when you're not having to wake up for work. And this is also important for school children. So even if you're not going to school, try and wake up at the same time. So even if you go to bed a little bit later than usual, try and wake up at the time that you usually would. And you can also try and set a pre-bedtime routine, so doing the same activities in the same order. And the last tip here is do not clock watch. So clock watch is when, let's say you have trouble falling asleep, and then it's half an hour has gone. You look at the clock, oh, I'm still not asleep yet. You look at the clock again, another hour has gone by. And when you do that, it just adds on to the stress, anxiety about, oh God, I haven't fallen asleep yet. Am I going to fall asleep? So what you can do here is to put your alarm clock, put your watch or whatever out of your field of vision. Put that out of sight. And another thing you can do is another skill, a set of skills are problem solving skills. So when you have facing any difficulties, identify what is causing you distress. And so here I can quickly share 5 steps to help with problem solving. And so those steps are: 1 is to identify the problem by being as specific as possible. What is affecting you? Like I said, what is causing you difficulty? Be specific. The second is to brainstorm. So at this stage, write down any ideas that come to mind. Don't judge them. Let the ideas flow. The third step is to evaluate the possible solutions. So now here is when you think of the pros and cons. The next step, the fourth step, is to choose the most appropriate solution and create a plan. And this may be a combination of solutions. Don't be overly ambitious, and try and come up with as much as a detailed plan as possible. So do you have the resources, the time, the money, etc.? And the final step is to review. So after you've carried out your plan, did you achieve what you wanted? If not, start this process again and keep in mind what you have learned from that. So as my conclusion, inevitably over time, what the new normal becomes is just normal. And it is understandable and acceptable to worry or to be stressed or anxious in response to an abnormal situation or while going through change or uncertain times as we are now. And hopefully, as you have learned over the previous 6 sessions, there are many ways and skills that we can sharpen and use to help ourselves cope, and also hopefully to grow through this experience and embrace the new normal. If you have the determination, along with endurance and persistence, we can embrace the new normal with all the challenges and ways of coping. Okay, so I would like to see if there are any comments or questions so far. Okay, so one of the comments is without interaction with friends, only doing digitally is weird. So how should we address it? Um, yes, it is a bit strange. It's not something that we are used to. 100% relying on technology, on digital virtual interactions, and it's not the same as obviously seeing someone face to face, and being in other people's presence. So how could we address that? Um, my suggestion would be to take the perspective of it's better than nothing. Like I said, we need to maintain the connection. We still need to be able to relate to people. And if you want to think of it from a positive side, a positive point of view is that, well, at least now I have more control over who I'm seeing, who I'm interacting with. So maybe, if you're going about your day-to-day life before the MCO, you bump into people that you maybe don't want to. But now you're in total control of who you want to interact with and who you want to speak with. So yeah, that would be my suggestion on how to address that point of just interacting virtually or digitally. Okay, another question was how to think positive in this market environment. How to think positive. Okay, positive thinking is not about denying or ignoring the negative aspects. From more of a psychological or therapeutic point of view, think positive thinking, if you think about it more in terms of balanced thinking. Um, so trying to look at things from a different perspective, try try thinking of things from a way that you perhaps didn't do before. So like I said, think in line of the concept of joy of missing out. Um, what is it? What is it that you don't have to do anymore that's actually kind of nice? That it is. I'm happy. I'm glad that okay, I can have a break from this, or that I don't have to do this anymore. Um, so yeah, I guess um, the best way to go about it is to look at things from a different perspective. But again, like I said, it's not about denying or ignoring the other aspects of it. So when you're going through a rough situation, there are the negatives and the positives, um, and try and practice the skills that have been discussed throughout this series. So the coping skills, the stress management skills, um, and even the problem solving skills that I just talked about just now. So I hope that kind of answers that question. Okay, Alex L commented that it was difficult to make adjustments to the new norm in the beginning, but now seems that we're able to adapt it. I guess we just have to accept changes and move on. Well, yep, thank you for seeing that point. It's definitely not easy, and like I said, some people may find this harder than others, and because the uncertainty that we're going through now, I mean, the fact that it's uncertain is that it doesn't have a deadline. We don't know when this is going to end, and we don't know the outcome once this is all over. We don't know the final effect of it. Um, and that can be very anxiety provoking and very stressful for some people. So the thing about acceptance, the thing about accepting is, like I mentioned again, not denying or ignoring, but saying to yourself, thinking that, okay, so this is what I'm going through now. This is the experience. This is the reality that we have, and I need to focus on what I can do about it. I need to focus on, how I can help myself adjust and adapt to whatever is going on now. Okay, Suzila commented that we should be grateful and enjoy and appreciate everything that we're going around now. And which, it's appreciating the small things, appreciating the things that maybe we didn't get a chance to um, notice or pay so much attention to in the past, but now that either we're stuck at home or whatever it is, the other way to think about it is that, yes, now I have time to pick up on hobby or skill that I didn't have time before this, or I have more time with my children. There's more time for me to engage with them, or even catch up with friends, things like that. Okay, and so so some people have been practicing the concept of mindfulness. Misa commented that I have been going digital for almost for a few months. I have come to accept I have come to acceptance despite some frustration. I keep myself positive by managing my thoughts, and by looking at different perspective. So yeah, like I mentioned, mindfulness, it's easier said than done, definitely. Um, but the idea again is focusing on the positive. So for some people, it might be going away from the digital activities, the digital social media side of things. So it's a two-edged sword in terms of social media and technology that we have. On one hand, it can be very distracting for some people. It can be even stressful for some people. Imagine you leave your phone for an hour and then there's 200 messages. For some people, that's very stressful, anxiety provoking. So it depends how you look at things. And again, the point is um, to focus on the present. And the simplest, perhaps the easiest way to start is um, by take a routine activity. Let's say just washing the dishes. So while you're washing the dishes, pay attention to how that feels in your hand. The water, running through your fingers, and whatever sensations that you notice. And so, start applying that to whatever you're doing every day. It's as simple as that. But like I said, it's not easy to do, and it takes time. Okay. Um, so I would just like to round off by saying that embracing the new normal, we are already in the process of that. There is no definite end that we can see now, and like I said, the uncertainty makes us anxious. But as long as we are determined, and as much as we can accept that this is happening, this is what we're going through, um, we will grow through this, and we will adjust. It just may take some time. Okay, so I think that's the end of my slot for today. I thank everyone for listening, and anyone who's paid attention. Thank you very much.